now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other two books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. Many employers are saying that there is a shortage of workers and they just can't find people to fill their jobs. However, once you start to dig deeper into these claims that they can't find workers, you see that they primarily want workers of a certain gender. Now, I was watching ABC News and they were talking about this worker shortage, and the report started to say that their problem was they couldn't get women back into the workforce. I thought that if you were looking for workers, you would be looking for both men and women, but it seems like many of these employers have a preference for women, and it seems like many of these employers are really desperate to get women back into the workforce because the Biden administration says its main goal is to get the women back into the workforce, and statistics have stated that over 2.1 million women have left the workforce and have not returned. So it's looking like many of these employers aren't really desperate to get workers, they're just desperate to get women back into the workforce. Now, I find that to be quite sexist because I thought we were about trying to get the best workers for the job, and you would think a desperate employer would take whoever is coming to them. I mean, we have over 8 or 9 million men who have been out of work since the Great Recession, and many of those men have not returned to the workforce. So why aren't employers trying to recruit those men back to the workforce? That's the critical question I would like to ask many of these employers, and I would like to ask members of the Biden administration. I mean, we've got over 8 million men like myself who have been out of work since the Great Recession of 2008, and many of those men never returned to the workforce after the Great Recession. And while those men left the unemployment rolls when their unemployment ran out, like mine did in 2011, many of those men, like myself, are still looking for work and still would be glad to have a job. So why aren't employers making an effort to appeal to many of the men out here who need a job? Why are employers so focused on the women and the women who have left the workforce? I mean, 8 million men would bring most of these jobs back to where they would need to be as related to productivity, and 8 million men on the payrolls who have dropped out of the workforce would have a more significant impact on the economy. But many of these employers in the Biden administration would rather focus on bringing women back to the workforce, and that really, again, doesn't seem like something logical as I see it, because the 8 million men would go out here, and once they got themselves together, they would build a stronger middle class, and they would build a stronger economic base because men are primarily producers, but many employers in the service industry, they don't want men in the workforce because men are producers, and once men start learning about a business, they fear that they're going to have competition. So that's why they fear bringing men back to the workforce, because once men learn techniques and skills, they start working towards building their own businesses. So they like having the woman in the workforce because the woman benefits them as related to this consumer-based economy we have. Now, the main reason why they want those women to come back to the workforce is because of the economic model the United States currently has. Now, the United States currently has a consumer-based economy, And because the United States has a consumer based economy, 97% of the money in the economy is made through consumption. And most of the businesses in this service based economy are based on spending. And the biggest spender in the United States is the woman. So they want to get this woman back working because when this woman works, she spends a lot more money than the man. And that's why many of these employers are desperate to get her back into the workforce because they need that woman spending in order for them to have their consumer based economy come back. So when you have women in the workforce, you primarily have people who are going out here buying all sorts of services, whether they be childcare or buying consumer goods like fast food, or going out here and buying other services like buying clothes and buying all sorts of groceries. So the economy is designed for the woman, and it is mostly gynocentric, and that's one of the reasons why they're so desperate to get this woman back. Now, they also want to get this woman back into the workforce because when the woman works, she works under more different conditions than a man. Now, a man, when he is in the workforce, he has certain terms and conditions he will work under that a woman won't work under. Now, your woman, in contrast to a man, she will put up with working in all sorts of working conditions that a man won't deal with. Now, your woman, she will go out here and she will work all sorts of erratic hours, and that benefits many managers, especially in service businesses, because they can get this woman to work hours that go past 9 to 5. Because most men, they are going to set boundaries for their time because they understand the value of time. But many women, because they are emotional and they are caught up in trying to advance up the ladder, they will sit there and work all sorts of erratic hours and not think about it because they will talk about concepts like flex time, not understanding that this flex time really doesn't really benefit them. It really benefits the employer because it allows them an opportunity to abuse the worker by having them work hours out of the norm. For example, in many service businesses, because they have these erratic hours, the women will work as early as 5:30 in the morning at a service business, and she'll work as late as midnight at these businesses because these women want to have this flex time, and the whole thing is they don't set hard boundaries. But when there is a group of men in the workforce, they are going to set hard boundaries, and they're going to say, I'm going to work 8 hours, and I'm going to work 8 hours on a certain shift, whereas a woman will sit there and tolerate working all sorts of hours, and those hours can change from day to day or week to week, depending on whatever their managers want it to be. Meanwhile, in contrast, a man is going to insist that his hours remain consistent because one, he values his time, and two, he wants to work on other ventures outside of that job, and three, he wants to make sure that he gets rested so he can remain productive. But when your woman is in the workforce, she won't really think about these types of things, and she'll work all these erratic hours, not understanding that it's messing with her mind when you change hours from 5:30 in the morning one week or one day, and then drop it all the way to 9 a.m. the next day, and this makes it where you cannot perform consistently. But the female will take this because she is emotional and she is also very agreeable, and because she is emotional and agreeable, she will accept working erratic hours, not understanding that this has an impact on her long-term performance. Now, in addition to tolerating erratic hours, many of your women in the workforce will also sit there and be able not and accept really poor salaries, because a lot of women complain about being underpaid, but many women, when they enter the workforce, they are just so emotional about getting an offer from the employer that they don't really think about the terms and conditions of the job. And one of the terms and conditions of the job any man, when he goes into the workforce, thinks about is how much is he getting paid and what benefits are being offered. So before he even accepts the offer for the job officially, a man will sit there and look at the salary range. He will assess the duties of the job, and he will sit there and see what the salary range is. And if the salary and the benefits do not meet his terms, he will decline the position. Meanwhile, a woman will sit there, and because she is emotional, she will take whatever offer is given to her, and she will not make any demands because she is agreeable. So she will sit there, and if they tell her, oh, this job has no benefits and it's paying at the minimum of the pay range, she will take that pay range. And that's why employers prefer to hire women, because they can get away with paying women less, because women will not challenge many of these employers as related to salary and benefits. And that's why many employers are desperate to get women back into the workforce, because if they have to deal with that man, they're going to have to deal with men who, based on their skills and experience, are going to demand more money, and they're going to demand at the higher end of the spectrum of the pay scale, and they're also going to be demanding health care, and they're also going to be demanding retirement benefits. So employers don't really like to have men in the workforce, because when the woman is working, they can get her to work for less. Even though there's equal pay laws, what they can do is have the woman, because she's emotional, agree to certain terms. And because she agrees to work for these terms, they can get her to work longer hours, they can get her to work erratic hours, and they can get her to work these inconsistent hours for lower pay and benefits than they would get a man. So that's why so many employers are desperate to get the woman back into the workforce, and they also are desperate to get the woman back into the workforce because they can get her to work under conditions that men just won't work under. Now, when it comes to men in the workforce, men, again, have certain standards for their work. They set boundaries for themselves, and they demand respect when they are on the job. Meanwhile, in contrast, a female, when she enters the workforce, she will, because she's emotional and she's also very social and wants social acceptance, she will not really set boundaries for how she is treated on the job, nor will she have a standard for how people conduct themselves around them. So many employers can get away with manipulating women, abusing women, and disrespecting women in the workplace. And the woman will sit there and tolerate this, thinking that if she has to do this in order to get ahead. And a lot of female bosses will go out here and verbally abuse and humiliate another woman. Meanwhile, in a workplace with a man, he's going to set a hard boundary for himself in that workplace from day one. And the reason why he's going to set a hard boundary for himself in that workplace from day one is because he understands that he needs to be respected in that workplace from day one if he hopes to move ahead in the workplace and he hopes to achieve or accomplish any sort of goals. So when you have a man in the workplace, he is going to set a boundary for himself. And again, many employers don't like the idea of having a man in the workplace, because when men set standards as related to the hours they're going to work, they set standards as related to the salary they're going to be paid, and they also set boundaries as related to the hours they're going to work in that workplace. that makes it where the employer doesn't have as much control as they would like to have. Whereas when they bring the woman into the workplace, they can go out here and they can make them work all sorts of hours, tolerate all sorts of working conditions, and they can go out here and verbally, emotionally, and abuse them. And many of these women, because they don't understand that there's supposed to be a standard for how you're treated in the workplace, they will sit there and tolerate being disrespected. They will tolerate working in really dangerous and unsafe conditions, and they will sit there and try to sweep things under the rug because they are agreeable and they want to be social, and they will sit there and there will be problems going on in the workplace, and instead of them bringing this up and getting things solved, because they will just bury it under the rug. Because in many workplaces where females are, what they will do when there's a problem is not confront the problem the way a man would. No, they're going to sweep the problem under the rug and hope to be accepted by the managers because they fear conflict, whereas a man does not fear conflict, and a man is a natural problem solver. So when a man enters the workforce, he is interested in conflict because that's partial to what he is as a leader, and he's also wants to solve problems. So when a man enters the workforce, his idea of productivity is solving problems and moving the organization ahead, whereas a woman, she wants to sit there and agree and be accepted socially by the bosses. And that's why many employers are desperate to get the woman back into the workforce, because they don't really want to move their businesses forward. No, they want females there because females will sit there and agree with everything that they say, and they will look to be accepted socially, but they're not looking to grow a business. And that's why they really don't want men back into the workforce, because if these employers were so serious about hiring workers, they would take whoever comes to them, and they would be really making an effort to reach out to those 8 to 9 million men like myself who have been out of work since the Great Recession, because those men would actually build a stronger economy, because the men like myself would be bringing innovation to the workforce, because we would be out here, in addition to establishing standards for the workplace, also going out here and creating new ideas and new products. But many employers, they don't want to go out here and create new products. They don't want to explore new markets. They don't want to take risks. And what they want to do is hire the women so that they can be safe and they can get social acceptance. Unfortunately, social currency does not generate wealth. And many employers, again, they're saying that they're desperate and they're not able to build or expand their businesses because they are so short-staffed. But what type of staff are you looking for? Because when you go out here and say you only want to get the women back into the workforce, that doesn't really help America's economy. No, what helps America's economy is when we invest in our men and get our men back working. Because when you have working men in the workforce, you have a strong economy. And when you have men working in the workforce, you are going to be making more products and reaching new audiences. But you have many employers who say we have a shortage of workers, but it's really that you have a shortage of workers in a certain gender. And the whole thing is you've got an abundance of men out here who desperately need work and desperately were looking for jobs and are still looking for jobs and would be glad to take a job if you offered it to them. But instead of trying to go after those men and help get them back into the workforce, you have many employers looking to try to cut corners by hiring women and foreigners and then complaining they can't find workers, when in actuality they're just completely full of it because they're looking to find the cheapest worker they can find, and they're not looking to go out here and help America's men be the best and brightest men they can be. So when I listen to many of these politicians and business people complaining there's a shortage of workers, I know most of them are full of it, because if you were really looking for workers, you would be looking for men like myself, and especially a lot of the black men out here who never really got jobs in the last recovery. You would be looking for those black men, and you would be going out here trying to actively recruit those men, because there would be a better investment for your business. But many employers don't want to go out here and look for those workers, because they're looking to get the cheapest person they can find. And because they're looking to get the cheapest person they can find, they usually wind up paying. And the reason why a lot of these businesses are struggling right now is because they're looking for the cheapest worker they can find. But the whole thing is, if you're desperate, you're supposed to take what you can get. I mean, we've got all of these black men out here, we've got all of these white men out here, and we've got all of these college students who are majoring in things like your gender studies and your women's studies and your anthropology. I mean, all those people you can go out here and hire, but you don't want to hire those people because you want to be able to have somebody you can manipulate, control, and be submissive to the point where they'll put up with any sort of abuse. And that's the main reason why they can't find employees, because many employers are looking for somebody to be codependent and not somebody who will be an interdependent worker. So that's the main reason why many employers can't seem to find good workers, because many are looking for people who will be of the lowest standard. But if they looked and raised their bar to people of a higher standard, they could possibly find higher quality workers and build a stronger workforce in the long term. But many employers aren't really looking for a quality worker. They're just looking for people who they can get to manipulate and control. And that's why we have a so-called worker shortage, because they're looking to get the women back into the workforce, and they're not looking to invest in all of America's men who could build a better and a stronger America. Now, if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can pick up you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to pick up some of my SJS Direct books, like the ISIS series, the E-Steam series, the John Haynes series, and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, you can find all of those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashware's The iBook Store and Google Play. I apologize for all of the noise in the background. People are drilling into the bricks in the wall in this building, so I really apologize for all that noise. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Taking Care of Business. The man who rules the world breaks in a brand new partner to help him take care of business in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get John Haynes, Taking Care of Business at paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere.